Have you ever wondered how a couple can keep their passion alive after more than 40 years together? Today I'm going to share the story of Beatrice and Jesse, a couple who not only managed to preserve the spark in their relationship, but also deepened their connection in profound ways over time. Their love hasn't grown stronger by chance. It's the result of what they've discovered about the true nature of intimacy, the importance of patience, and the power of small, thoughtful gestures that nurture desire. The lessons from their journey could radically change how you view your own relationships. There's no secret formula here, but the insights they offer could transform your intimate life in ways you may have never imagined. And if this is your first time visiting my channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. What I'm about to share will not only surprise you, but it could mark a turning point in your relationship. Let's dive in. A few weeks ago, I decided to visit Beatrice and Jesse, a couple who have been close friends of my family for as long as I can remember. They're one of those couples who, despite being together for over 40 years, still radiate that spark of connection and playfulness that many believe fades with time. The afternoon was peaceful, the tea was served, and our conversation began as it always does, light and casual. But I couldn't hold back my curiosity. After all, who wouldn't want to uncover the secret behind a couple that still enjoys every aspect of being together after so many years? So, with a bit of playful mischief, I asked the burning question, how have you managed to keep the flame alive for so long? Jesse, never one to shy away from honesty, let out a soft laugh and said, "Dear, the trick isn't just about what happens in bed. It's about everything that happens long before you get there. And it all starts with something very simple, learning to truly listen." Her response intrigued me. How could something as seemingly simple as listening carry so much weight in keeping passion alive? But then Beatrice, always the calm and thoughtful one, added, "Yes, listening, but not just passively, like hearing the wind pass by. It's about being present, showing your partner that every word they speak, every gesture they make truly matters. When you listen that way, the connection deepens, and that connection will later show up in intimacy." In that moment, I realized the real magic behind Beatrice and Jesse's relationship wasn't just in how long they had been together. It was in how they had learned to pay close attention to one another. Jesse elaborated, "A woman feels desired when she feels truly heard. That's how we are. If someone really listens and is present when we talk, you can only imagine what that creates when night comes." This was the beginning of one of their most important lessons, the importance of listening, not just for the sake of hearing words, but with genuine interest and attentiveness. "When we were younger," Jesse continued, "Beatrice thought she knew it all. She'd hear the words, but her mind would be elsewhere. It took years for her to learn that desire is built in the little moments when a woman feels seen, heard, and valued." Beatrice nodded with a knowing smile. "I didn't realize how much I was gaining by being present until I really made the effort," she admitted. "Before, I thought that romantic gestures or buying gifts would be enough. But when I began to listen with real intention, our connection grew stronger, and that connection naturally translated into deeper, more intense intimacy." Jesse, amused, chimed in, "And when someone really listens, you relax. You open up. Intimacy becomes much more natural because it feels like you don't have to explain yourself, like they already get you. It's a weight off your shoulders." Beatrice, in her usual calm tone, shared an example. "There came a time when I realized that every conversation, every little detail I remembered, meant something bigger. Suddenly, Jesse felt closer to me, more trusting, and that trust definitely showed in our intimate moments. That's when I learned a key truth. Emotional connection is the foundation of everything else. When a woman feels understood, listened to, and valued, It creates a much more genuine space for intimacy. Explained it perfectly. We're not machines you can just turn on with a button. For us, desire begins long before anything physical happens. If you pay attention, if you listen and connect, everything else falls into place. And true to form, she couldn't resist adding a bit of humor. If you want things to flow smoothly in bed, start by listening over breakfast. Trust me, it works better than flowers or a fancy dinner. We all laughed, but behind her joke was a profound truth. Often we focus on grand gestures, surprises, or gifts, thinking those are the keys to keeping the spark alive. But Beatrice and Jesse taught me something far simpler, yet much deeper. True intimacy begins in the everyday moments, in the small gestures that make your partner feel valued and understood. This realization didn't come overnight for Beatrice either. She admitted that it took time to understand how crucial these details were. At first, I thought intimacy just happened, but when I learned to listen, everything changed. When Jessie felt connected and understood, everything else became easier. With her usual cheeky grin, Jessie concluded, "It's not a complicated secret, dear. If you want a woman to respond well in bed, you've got to listen to her outside of it first." And that was the first lesson they shared with me. Listen with full attention and presence. When a woman feels truly understood, desire naturally follows. That's how Beatrice and Jessie have kept the spark alive for all these years, by paying attention to each other and connecting in every little interaction. Because intimacy doesn't begin in the bedroom, it starts in the small, everyday moments that, when nurtured, can transform a relationship. After a good laugh, Jessie set her teacup down, leaned back in her chair, and I knew what was coming next would be just as important. A few weeks ago, I visited Beatrice and Jessie, a couple who have been close to my family for as long as I can remember. They've been together for more than 40 years, and the spark between them is still very much alive. As we settled in for a quiet afternoon over tea, I couldn't resist asking them how they managed to keep that connection going for so long. With a knowing smile, Beatrice nodded as Jessie shared a piece of wisdom that many men overlook. If you want a woman to fully open up, you need to embrace one of the most underrated virtues in intimacy: patience. The word virtue struck me, and I knew Jessie was getting to the heart of something important. Jessie, always straightforward, explained that patience isn't just about the big moments, but also about the small, everyday ones. She recounted how, in the early days of their relationship, Beatrice was like many others, impatient in their intimate life, wanting everything to happen quickly and with intensity from the start. But as time passed, Beatrice learned a key lesson that transformed their relationship. There's no need to rush. Patience is what allows a woman to feel truly comfortable, connected, and free to open up emotionally and physically. Jessie gave me an example from when they were younger, how their intimate moments were often hurried, fueled by the urgency of life. At first, everything felt rushed, she said. We thought passion meant doing things quickly and intensely. But over time, we realized that there's nothing more powerful than slowing down, not just physically, but emotionally. For us, desire needs time to bloom. Beatrice, always reflective, chimed in. I used to think that being spontaneous and quick was what she wanted, but when I learned to be patient, not to rush things, everything changed. I began to understand that true intimacy isn't about racing to the end, it's about savoring every part of the journey. This notion stayed with me, especially since we're so often taught that passion is immediate, that it's better when it's fast and intense. But Beatrice and Jessie were showing me a different truth. Patience creates the space for real connection to grow. It's not just about pausing physically. It's about allowing a rhythm that honors the other person's needs, making them feel comfortable, safe, and ready to fully engage. Jessie explained that this change in their dynamic allowed their relationship to deepen, When Beatrice started taking things slower, becoming more attentive, everything improved. The simple fact that there was no pressure to rush made me feel more relaxed, more open to enjoying the moment. And of course, that sense of relaxation had a direct impact on how physical intimacy felt. When there's no pressure, everything flows so much more naturally. Jessie continued, "It's not just that we need time. It's that when a man shows patience, when he's not in a hurry, we feel valued. It makes us feel like he's enjoying every little moment with us, not just waiting for a happy ending." Beatrice, with a wise smile, added, "The first time I really practiced patience, I thought it would be boring, that she'd get tired of it. But it was the opposite. When I slowed down, I could feel how she relaxed, how everything became easier and more natural." Of course, this lesson about patience doesn't just apply to physical intimacy. It's essential in every aspect of the relationship. Beatrice explained that the patience she learned in day-to-day life, whether in conversations, during difficult moments, or just in the way they interacted, transformed their intimate life. When you stop rushing through everything, you create a space where intimacy can flourish without pressure, without expectations. It becomes about enjoyment, not about reaching some predetermined end. Jessie shared that, in the past, she had often felt like she couldn't fully relax. "It was as if I always had this sense of urgency, like something was pushing me not to truly enjoy the moment. But when Beatrice became more patient, I felt like I had permission to take my time, to fully enjoy each moment without feeling rushed." This lesson about patience left a deep impression on me. So often, we rush through life, expecting quick results in everything, including relationships. But what Beatrice and Susan showed me was that when you take the time to enjoy the process, when you let things flow naturally without rushing, that's when true intimacy happens. Patience not only strengthens the emotional connection, but creates a space where both partners feel free to be themselves without hurry and without unrealistic expectations. With a smile, Jessie concluded, "So dear, if you want to keep the spark alive, remember, it's not always about doing more. Sometimes it's about doing less and letting things happen naturally." And Beatrice, in her usual calm way, wrapped up the conversation with a perfect line. "When you learn to enjoy the journey instead of rushing toward the destination, the relationship becomes richer, deeper, and intimacy becomes so much more pleasurable." The lesson was clear. Patience is the secret to transforming not just intimacy, but the entire relationship. When you take the time to truly listen, to understand, and to savor every moment, you create a space where authentic desire and lasting connection can flourish. The afternoon was filled with laughter and meaningful conversation, and just when I thought I had absorbed all the wisdom Beatrice and Jessie had to offer, Beatrice surprised me with another profound insight. This time, she tackled a topic that many couples, especially as they grow older, begin to accept as inevitable: how intimacy changes with age. With her usual grace, Beatrice turned to me and said, "Listen, if there's one thing you should know, it's that intimacy doesn't disappear with age, it evolves. And if you learn how to adapt, it actually gets better." Jessie, sitting by her side and sharing in the moment, added, "When you're young, intimacy often seems to revolve around physical desire, with all that youthful energy. But as you get older, you start to realize that there's a depth to your connection that transcends the physical. The emotional bond strengthens, and that makes every moment richer." Beatrice nodded in agreement and shared how, after they turned 50, they began to notice that their intimate life didn't have the same frequency or urgency it once did. "At first I was worried," she admitted. "I thought maybe we were losing the spark. But after talking about it, We realized that what we were gaining was far more valuable than what we had before. She explained that mature intimacy isn't about quantity, but about quality. In the past, it was all about how often we were intimate and how passionate it was. Now it's deeper. It's not that the desire is gone, it's that it's transformed into something more meaningful. Every touch, every gesture carries emotional weight, because we know each other so much better now. Jessie then offered a reflection that truly resonated with me. Over time, you learn to appreciate the little things, the gestures that once seemed insignificant, and without the pressure to constantly perform or meet certain expectations, you find yourself enjoying those moments in a much more profound way. Beatrice added, with her signature humor, "People think that as you age, intimacy becomes boring or monotonous, but we've found the opposite. When you take the time to emotionally connect, the physical part becomes even more pleasurable. It's no longer about rushing to the happy ending. It's about savoring every step of the process." This insight shifted my entire perspective. I realized that age isn't the enemy of intimacy, but an ally. As time goes by, you have the opportunity to deepen your relationship in ways you might never have imagined. Beatrice explained with clarity, "By the time you're in your 50s, you're no longer weighed down by the insecurities of your 20s and 30s. You know your body, you know your partner's body, and most importantly, you know yourself. That makes every intimate moment more genuine and fulfilling." Jessie, always the thoughtful one, chimed in, "It's freeing. You stop worrying about whether you're doing everything perfectly and focus on the connection. It's no longer about proving anything, just about enjoying the moment together without hurry, without expectations." As Beatrice smiled at Jessie, she explained how letting go of those pressures brought a new level of enjoyment to their intimate life. We learned to relax, to just go with how we were feeling in the moment. Sometimes it's not about doing anything big. It's about the small gestures, a slow kiss, or a simple touch. That's where the magic happens. Their story taught me that intimacy evolves over time, becoming something far more valuable than what you start with. It becomes an extension of your emotional bond built on years of trust, communication, and shared experiences. Every touch, every word shared in those moments carries a deeper meaning because it's a reflection of the life you've built together. Beatrice also emphasized that as our bodies change with age, we have to adapt. Sometimes our bodies don't respond the way they used to, and that's okay. It's not about forcing things, but about learning to enjoy what we can do now. When you accept that, the pressure disappears, and all that's left is pure pleasure. Jessie summed it up perfectly. As the years go by, intimacy becomes a celebration of everything you've lived through together. Every glance, every touch is a reminder of what you've built, and that's a feeling that can't be compared to anything else. The lesson was clear. Intimacy doesn't fade with age. It transforms. And if you're willing to adapt, to let go of past expectations, and to fully enjoy the present, it can become richer, deeper, and more meaningful than you ever imagined. If you've been enjoying the story of Beatrice and Jessie so far and feel like you're gaining new insights into how to keep intimacy alive in a relationship, don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button to support this content. I highly recommend sticking around until the end, because the most revealing part of their journey is yet to come. For those truly committed to understanding how small gestures can transform their intimate lives, I have a final reflection that could make a big difference. And by the way, where are you tuning in from? I'd love to know where you're joining us from. Let's continue. Beatrice, with that mischievous smile she always wears when she's about to drop some wisdom, glanced at me and said, "Celia, let me tell you something that few people understand. If a woman doesn't feel safe with you, forget about having a night that truly makes her swoon. And I'm not just talking about physical safety, but emotional safety as well. Jessie, sitting next to her, nodded silently, a clear sign that this was a lesson they had learned over time, not necessarily early in their relationship. Beatrice didn't waste time explaining why trust and emotional safety were so crucial. We women need to feel that we can be ourselves without filters, without masks, without the fear of judgment or feeling like we're doing something wrong. If a man offers us that space of trust, if we know we can open up without fear, that's when things really get interesting. She explained that this was the key. If a woman doesn't feel like she can express her desires and deepest emotions without fear of being judged or misunderstood, an invisible barrier forms. This barrier, even if subtle, can extinguish the spark before it even has a chance to ignite. Jessie, always calm and thoughtful, explained that it took him time to fully understand this. At first, I thought being affectionate was enough, but then I realized there was something deeper going on. Sometimes Beatrice seemed distant, as if she didn't want to fully open up, and I didn't understand why. One night we had a conversation where she explained it to me. She needed to feel that I was there for her without judgment or expectations, that there was nothing she couldn't share with me. Beatrice, with a sparkle in her eyes, added, "When a woman feels she can tell you what she truly wants, without fear that you'll be shocked or nervous, that's when things start to get fun." She laughed, but there was a deep truth in her words. Without trust, we often stay quiet, hold back, but when we feel safe and free from judgment, that's when we can really let go, and that's when real intimacy begins. Jessie shared an anecdote that perfectly illustrated this. There was a time when I didn't know how to react when Beatrice told me what she liked. I felt lost, unsure of what to do. But when I relaxed and stopped worrying about doing everything perfectly, I realized that what really mattered was that she felt comfortable being honest with me. Beatrice, with a sly smile, added, "Exactly. When you know you can be yourself, you start enjoying intimacy in a way you never have before. There are no barriers, no doubts, just pleasure, pure pleasure." That simple, direct phrase got me thinking about how often we overlook the importance of creating a space of absolute trust in relationships. Because the truth is, without that emotional security, intimacy will always feel limited. No matter how many romantic gestures you make, if your partner doesn't feel she can completely open up, she'll never give herself in the way that both of you truly desire. Jessie summed it up beautifully. When Beatrice feels that I accept her as she is, with her desires, her fantasies, her vulnerabilities, she relaxes. And when a woman is relaxed, believe me, everything flows much more intensely. But it wasn't always easy for them. Beatrice confessed that in the early years of their marriage, there were many things she didn't dare to share with Jessie, not because she didn't trust him, but because she was afraid he wouldn't understand. Sometimes, women worry that if we say what we really want, we might make our partner uncomfortable or confused. But when we started talking openly without fear, everything changed. Jessie smiled and added, "And when I started listening without feeling pressured to be perfect or meet some ideal, things shifted. I realized that real intimacy isn't about meeting expectations, but about creating a space where we can both be ourselves." Beatrice, always direct, concluded, "So if you really want to make a woman feel connected to you, start by giving her that sense of security. Let her know she can tell you anything without judgment, that there's nothing the two of you can't explore together. When she feels safe, believe me, she'll surprise you in ways you can't even imagine." Jessie, with his calm tone, added, "The trust we build outside the bedroom is what makes everything inside it more authentic and intense. It's not about techniques or tricks. It's about creating a space where both of you can relax, enjoy, and trust." In the end, the lesson was clear. Trust is the gateway to full, uninhibited intimacy. When a woman feels safe and knows she can be her complete self, everything changes. Now Beatrice had one more piece of wisdom to share. If you want things to get really interesting in intimacy, there's something that few couples do enough: disconnect to truly connect. Beatrice, with her usual sense of humor, shared a story that made me laugh. One night, Jesse and I turned off our phones, poured ourselves a glass of wine, and just sat on the couch to talk, nothing more. But that simple act of disconnecting from the outside world was what made the night so incredible. When we finally went to bed, well, let's just say there were no distractions, and it ended up being one of the best nights we'd had in months. Beatrice's story carried an important message. Intimacy, as she and Jesse explained, is not just about what happens in the bedroom, but everything that happens leading up to it. If you spend the day distracted, not truly engaging with your partner, you can't expect the night to magically turn into something special. However, when both of you take the time to truly be present, to look into each other's eyes, to listen without the constant buzz of distractions, desire naturally follows without any pressure. The lesson became clear. If you want to improve your intimate life, it starts by disconnecting from daily distractions. When you create those calm, focused moments where the rest of the world fades away, what remains is the genuine connection between you and your partner. That connection is what fuels desire and deepens intimacy, transforming it into something much more profound and pleasurable. Beatrice, with a mischievous glint in her eye, leaned in closer and said, "If you want things to flow in the bedroom, start by turning off the phone. You'll be amazed at how everything else lights up." Then, with that playful look I had come to know so well, she added, "Celia, there's something most men don't get, but when they do, everything changes. And that is, true strength in intimacy comes from a man's ability to be vulnerable." That statement surprised me. Vulnerability and strength, they don't usually go hand in hand, especially when we think about intimacy. But Beatrice, with her usual wisdom, explained it in a way that made it all seem so obvious. We women like to know that the man we're with is strong, yes, but not just physically. We want someone who can show us their emotions, their fears, their insecurities, someone who's not afraid to be real. Jesse, who had been nodding along, added, "At first, being vulnerable was a strange concept for me. I grew up believing that a man had to always be strong, that showing emotions was a sign of weakness. But over the years, I learned that there's nothing more powerful in intimacy than being able to show yourself without masks or pretending." Beatrice, never one to miss adding a touch of humor, smiled and said, "Look, when a man opens up, when he trusts you enough to let his guard down, that's when things really get interesting. Because it's not just about feeling desired. We also want to feel like we can take care of him, like we're sharing something more than just the physical." It was eye-opening. We don't often think of vulnerability as part of intimacy, but what Beatrice and Jesse were teaching me was that when a man allows himself to be vulnerable, he deepens the emotional connection. And that deeper connection then translates into a much more intense and meaningful intimacy. Not only does it create a space where both can be authentic, without fear of judgment, but it also breaks down barriers, allowing for a truer connection. Jesse shared an anecdote that really resonated. "There was a point in our relationship where I felt insecure. As the years passed, my body wasn't responding the way it did when I was younger. I started worrying that maybe Beatrice wasn't as attracted to me anymore, but instead of keeping those fears to myself, I talked to her about it. I opened up, confessed my insecurities, and that's when I realized how important it is to share these things." Beatrice, with tenderness in her eyes, added, "That was the moment I knew how much he trusted me, not just as his wife, but as his partner. When he opened up, something changed between us. I felt closer to him than ever, And yes, that also had an effect on our intimacy. Suddenly, there were no barriers between us. The lesson was clear. Male vulnerability is not a weakness, but a gateway to deeper intimacy. When a man can show his emotions, share his fears, and express his desires, he creates a space for a more authentic, sincere connection between both partners. Beatrice explained, "Men often feel like they have to be the strong ones, always in control. But dear, that's exhausting. No one can be strong all the time. When a man allows himself to be vulnerable, we trust him even more because he's no longer this untouchable figure. He's real. He's someone who also needs care, understanding, and support." Jessie added something that really made me reflect. "By showing my vulnerability, I opened up a space where both of us could be ourselves. No pretenses, no need to meet any expectations. And in that space of trust and openness, our intimacy became so much richer. We were just present, enjoying the moment, being ourselves." Beatrice, with her playful touch, made me laugh again. And of course, when a man stops trying to be perfect all the time, he becomes a much more attentive lover. He's no longer worried about whether he's doing everything right. He's just enjoying the moment with me. And that makes everything so much more pleasurable. What they were describing wasn't just about improving intimacy. It was about creating a more authentic connection. Because when both partners feel secure enough to show who they really are, without fear of judgment, that's when true intimacy blossoms. Jesse concluded in his calm tone, "I learned that being vulnerable doesn't make me less of a man. On the contrary, it makes me stronger, because it allows me to be honest with myself and with Beatrice. And that's what has kept our relationship growing even after all these years." Beatrice, with her signature wisdom, wrapped up the conversation with a statement that left a lasting impression on me. "True intimacy isn't just in the bodies, it's in the hearts. When both partners open up, when they show themselves as they truly are, without fear, that's when they truly begin to enjoy the meaning of being together." Her words carried a powerful lesson. Vulnerability is the real strength in intimacy. When a man allows himself to be open, authentic, and lets his guard down, he creates a space where emotional and physical connection can thrive, without limits, without fear, and with a depth that goes far beyond the surface. As the evening drew to a close, the atmosphere became more relaxed, more intimate. Beatrice looked at me with that familiar sparkle in her eyes, and I knew what was coming was going to be special. "Celia," she said, as if about to share a profound truth, "in the end, everything we've talked about boils down to something very simple but incredibly powerful. The connection you have in bed is just a reflection of how you treat each other outside of it." Jesse, who had been silent for a while, nodded and added in his calm tone, "It's true. The way you connect with your partner in everyday life, the small gestures, the little details, makes all the difference when it's time for intimacy." Beatrice smiled and shared an example that perfectly illustrated what it means to nurture a relationship through everyday actions. It's not about what you do once a month or grand romantic gestures. It's about how you show up every day. Do you make her coffee just the way she likes it? Do you gently touch her arm as you pass in the kitchen? Do you give her a soft kiss that says, "I love you," without having to use words? Those are the gestures that build real desire. What Beatrice and Jesse were showing me wasn't a magic formula, but something much deeper. True intimacy doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts with the small, everyday moments. Those seemingly insignificant actions, the kind words, and the unexpected touches are what quietly fuel desire. Jesse added something that struck a chord with me. The most pleasurable intimacy isn't the kind that happens out of nowhere. It's the kind that's built slowly from the moment you wake up until you go to bed. If I spend all day showing Beatrice that I love her, by the time night comes, there's already a connection there, ready for intimacy to naturally flow. Beatrice, always with her playful glint, leaned toward me and said, "And believe me, dear, when you've felt that connection all day, when you know your partner is truly listening, looking at you and caring for you, desire just arrives on its own. Suddenly, a simple touch in bed feels like a spark, and what happens after that? Well, that's just for enjoying." What they were teaching me was clear. Desire is nurtured by small, consistent actions, not by big, rare gestures. If you spend the day being attentive, showing affection without expecting anything in return, intimacy naturally becomes an extension of that love. And when your partner feels appreciated throughout the day, they're much more open to fully giving themselves at night. Beatrice shared a story that made me smile. "Jessie and I have this simple ritual. Every day, without fail, we give each other a kiss on the cheek before leaving the house. It may seem silly, but it's our way of reminding each other that we're there for one another. Believe me, those small gestures mean that when it comes time for intimacy, there's no need to reignite a connection. It's always there." Jessie, with the wisdom that comes from experience, added, "We take the time to nurture those small details because, in the end, true intimacy is about feeling loved and valued. When Beatrice feels that way, when she knows I see her and listen to her, our intimacy becomes much deeper, much more pleasurable. It's no longer just a physical act. It's a celebration of everything we share." I found myself reflecting on how powerful that idea was, intimacy as a celebration, not just an isolated moment, but as an expression of everything the couple has built outside the bedroom. Beatrice, with her playful touch, couldn't resist adding one final thought. And of course, when those small details are there, the physical part becomes even more exciting. A simple touch can feel electric. A soft kiss can wake up your whole body. Those everyday moments set the stage for intimacy to be something much more than just a fleeting moment. Jessie smiled and summed it up perfectly. When we treat each other well throughout the day, when we show each other that we love and value one another, the night becomes the space where all of that gets expressed. And the best part is there's no pressure, just enjoyment. The lesson was clear. True intimacy is built on the little daily details. It's not just about what happens in bed, but about how you connect with your partner throughout the day. An unexpected kiss, a gentle touch, or a kind word, these are the seeds that, at the end of the day, bloom into a much deeper, more pleasurable connection. Beatrice, with that warm smile that made me feel like I was listening to a lifelong friend, said, "So now you know, dear, if you want things to flow at night, start by paying attention to those little moments when no one is looking. Because in the end, the real magic isn't in grand gestures, it's in the smallest details." And that's when it clicked for me. Intimacy isn't about doing a lot in one big moment, but about doing a little each day. When you nurture those small gestures, when your partner feels like they're the center of your attention, everything else falls into place. The best part? Every night, every shared moment, becomes an opportunity to connect and enjoy each other more deeply than ever before. At the end of the day, what really matters isn't just what happens in those big moments, but how we cultivate the small details along the way. True intimacy, like love, is built slowly, with patience, through those everyday gestures we often overlook, but that are the real driving force behind our relationships. Beatrice and Jessie helped me understand that passion doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It needs to be nurtured consistently, day by day, through acts of love, attention, and respect. They showed me that the key to igniting that spark in a relationship lies in how we treat our partner in the moments when no one is watching. It's in those small, everyday acts of care and presence that the true magic happens. When we show our partner that we are there for them, truly present, and genuinely caring. That's when the deeper connection forms. This consistent effort transforms each touch, each kiss, and every glance into something far more meaningful. What makes it even better is that you don't need grand romantic gestures to keep the passion alive. The simple act of being present, of listening to your partner, and of appreciating the relationship you share is enough to cultivate intimacy that lasts. This approach isn't just about what happens in the bedroom, but about building a relationship that thrives in all aspects of life. By nurturing these small moments, we create a lasting, authentic, and most importantly, pleasurable intimacy. This space to be a place of wisdom, where we can discuss these important topics openly, with respect and closeness. Together, we'll explore ways to enhance not just our intimacy, but every aspect of our lives. Because in the end, it's the small acts of love and care, both toward others and ourselves, that deeply transform our relationships and well-being. If this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the topics we'll be diving into. And if you've made it this far, it shows you care deeply about your personal growth, and I applaud that. To celebrate your commitment, I'd love to know who has made it to the end of this video. Leave a comment with the phrase, "I love wisdom," and tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to read your stories and know from which part of the world we're sharing this journey. Finally, if you believe this message could bring value to someone you know, don't hesitate to share it. Sometimes, a simple reflection can be the advice someone needs to change their life. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, every small gesture you make today creates the love you'll enjoy tomorrow.